These money-hungry lowlifes are destroying one of Africa's biggest countries and the continent's future.
2, 1.
Choose your poison, I got the potion, the remedy. Make you feel good like some Hennessy. I can show you what you've been missing. I replied, man, you must be kidding. Evil thoughts trying to play me like a dummy. You got the right one, you about to meet your demise.
And then in that same interview, calling Obama terrorist and every president before and after him a terrorist.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Third Eye Thursdays. Thank you so much for joining us. It is our first season here on YouTube. So a little about the show. Here we talk about enlightening topics and we break down the news in this crazy age of misinformation together. So I really encourage you guys to hit the comments, send me a message. Let's talk about it so we can get down to what's really happening out there and keep our third eye open. On to our main story today. We are talking about Sudan. Our hearts go out to all the innocent people out there in the capital, around the country, and in the diaspora. People in the capital right now are living in some very saddening conditions that are truly horrible. The intense fighting in the streets is preventing people from retrieving the bodies of innocent victims, and they're just left out to rot in the streets. The few survivors there are afraid for their lives because there's gangs raping and looting all around the capital. Some people that are lucky enough to flee and they get to border towns and are stuck there for days with no food, no water, no shelter. A lot of people are dying and it's really sickening. And who's to blame for this chaos? There's two corrupt bozos that have forcefully taken the government out of people's hands, and now they're fighting each other for a position that they have no right being in, and putting 44 million people's lives in jeopardy. And now 55 days into the conflict and several ceasefires later, and there is still no hope in sight.
Well, you have the United States and Saudi Arabia, the mediators that mediated the now collapsed ceasefire between the two warring sides. They say that they've seen a lack of seriousness from both parties to commit to the ceasefire that they signed, a ceasefire which technically is supposed to end today, but has not been manifested on the ground.
And all because of greed. People need to understand that this bozo Hameti made hundreds of millions of dollars exploiting Sudan's natural resources. 77% of Sudan's gold has been stolen and sold to the UAE and Russia. Now, people might say that this is something that was done in the past, but as you'll see from this video, this conflict is still being fueled by these resources that are exploited.
And videos of Wagner troops training Sudanese soldiers surfaced on social media. In 2019, when al-Bashir was overthrown in a military coup, the arrangement persisted, proving just how enmeshed Wagner troops and the Sudanese army have become. And that's because the Wagner Group has a lot to gain. In exchange for providing weapons and training, the Wagner Group operates gold plants like this one, where they exploit Sudan's natural resources.
Getting that kind of high-value commodity that can be quickly turned into cash through a money laundering enterprise is a big part of the Wagner Group playbook.
These money-hungry lowlifes are destroying one of Africa's biggest countries and the continent's future. Sudan had always had leeches sucking off of its natural resources, and of course, it's one of the most magical places.
Sudan is a geostrategically important country. It sits astride the Nile, which is the lifeline to Egypt. It's home to these ports near the vital choke points of our global economy, the Suez Canal and the Horn of Africa, where 10% of world trade passes through, including huge amounts of oil. Powerful countries around the globe are always trying to put military bases here. They want to control bases and ports simply because of its vital importance for global trade. Sudan is also loaded with resources: gold, zinc, silver, chromite, and iron. This is stuff that foreign countries want and need.
With the most magical people. And now these two bozos, Hameti and Burhan, are destroying this country, and they are even responsible for a genocide, a whole war called the Forgotten War in Darfur. Now you see how terrible these two people are. I want to say it's very important to not let history be written the wrong way. We can't let these two bozos hijack the people's revolution. People went out and protested, and that's what brought down the dictator before. And it was only in the last second that the forces of these two bozos joined the fight, and they actually were responsible for shooting at the protesters and killing people. So it's unfair to say that they really had a hand in helping this protest. There's a lot of sources out there in the internet that are writing history the wrong way and saying that these two people helped the revolution when they were actually responsible for many of the casualties and many of the barricades that the people had to get through to take down the last dictator. Anyways, like I said, we're used to this enemy. Sudan had always had people like this, but now the time is different. We have the internet. We have the ability for the powerful diaspora of Sudanese people out there to all connect and figure out solutions of how to help people in Sudan right now. And the beautiful thing about the internet is that it exposes all these injustices and all these war crimes that are happening, so people can't ignore them anymore and governments can't ignore them anymore. So I say, let's utilize this tool, let's get together, let's brainstorm some more solutions to figure out what to do about this problem. There's definitely people working on this day and night, and what we can do is we can just help as much as we can. So I want to put a call out there to all my Sudanese people here in the US, overseas in London, and as a matter of fact, anybody who's interested in solving this conflict and bringing justice to Africa. I want us to get together, so send me a message, let's talk in the comments, and let's figure out some solutions. And let's try to do that to the best of our abilities. And for now, the least we can do is just continue to share information on our social medias and continue to spread the message so we can make sure that we'll have all eyes on Sudan and we can help the people. And now on to some much needed good news. Dr. Cornel West is running for the President of the United States of America with the People's Party. And it definitely makes me happy to hear this. I don't know if there will be significant change coming from this. I don't know if he'll really be able to gain the presidency or a significant, powerful position to help bring change into the United States. But just the fact that he's running and he's going to go out there and galvanize all these people, I think that is a beautiful thing that we all need. Now, I know Trump is probably loving this news, thinking that he might be the president, but with all these new federal charges, I don't think he's going to be free to run.
People who are willing to live and die for something bigger than them. And that's very much what we're talking about. And that's why we're going to run this campaign in such a way it's going to be so unique and singular and different and distinctive from what America's used to. They better get ready.
Yeah, I definitely really hope that he runs this campaign differently, because he really needs to do something unique to really make a change out there. Maybe a beautiful outcome can be a change in policies or laws because of all the attention he garners, or maybe he can even get a position with another party, or maybe he can even win the United States president. I really hope so. I don't think that'll happen, but at the very least, he'll steal some votes from Kanye West. So next up, we're talking about the FDA. Now, it's not really a secret that the FDA and the pharmaceutical industry have been in bed for years, promoting detrimental products for the sake of profit.
These fats also integrate themselves into your body. You are what you eat, right? And this is especially true for the kinds of fats that we consume.
Any polyunsaturated fat you give a pig is ending up in its fat. Any polyunsaturated fat that you or I eat is ending up in our fat tissue.
This is how much natural fats from things like beef, pork, dairy have been in our diet since 1960. This line is for vegetable oils. And this line is the obesity rate.
Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this new miracle drug, Ozempic, that a lot of celebrities are taking, and it's getting a lot of really good PR. Well, one of their biggest spokespersons just got into the FDA Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee.
Remember the CBS 60 Minutes segment on obesity where Dr. Stanford claimed on national television that obesity is a genetic brain disease?
It's a brain disease.
Turns out, in the 13-minute segment on weight loss drug Wegovy, the only medical experts interviewed by CBS were doctors who had received thousands of dollars in consulting fees and honoraria from Novo Nordisk, the maker of Wegovy and Ozempic, and the sponsor of that broadcast. Dr. Cody Stanford herself received over $15,000 from Novo Nordisk in 2021, the most recent year for which data is available.
That video is of Dr. Fatima Cody Johnson before she got into the FDA advisory committee, talking about controversial opinions that aren't really based in science. The tactics that Big Pharma uses to get more profit is insane. There is even a crazier example here of how corrupt politics has gotten.
There's a 3-part playbook. We went directly to the NAACP and the Hispanic Federation, very respected civil rights groups, and it was a quid pro quo. Coke paid them millions of dollars and they labeled the opponents racist, and that shuts down debate.
And according to Means, the same playbook is being used again today. Novo Nordisk is paying the NAACP to lobby on their behalf to say opponents of lifetime obesity injections such as Ozempic and Wegovy are racist. The implication is that the lack of access to a drug such as Ozempic is an example of, quote-unquote, systemic racism and oppression. In addition, Novo Nordisk has also funded articles in leading research journals advocating for the government to subsidize their drugs to address racism.
So yeah, as you can see, pharma companies don't only lobby legally, but they use every trick in the book, including bullying people as well as labeling them racist and homophobic, and using the NAACP and LGBTQ plus groups to try to label people as such. And in the video, that was Callie Means, a former pharmaceutical consultant. All right, yeah. So in other news, Vice filed for bankruptcy. I just thought it was funny that right when they cut ties with their funding, they drop a crazy video exposing some of the injustices that Israeli government is responsible for. Now, I don't know if this main Vice channel always covers Palestine. I know they haven't in some time. Anyways, I know that Vice News has gone out of business for several reasons, including some of the recent tech layoffs, as well as other internal conflicts. But they did drop a crazy expose of the government in Israel.
Ben-Gvir is an ultra-nationalist settler extremist. In November 2022, he was appointed Israel's Minister of National Security.
He supports relaxing open-fire rules against Palestinian rioters and wants security forces to be immune from criminal prosecution.
In 2007, he was convicted of incitement to racism and supporting a terrorist organization.
Ben-Gvir also got his political start in the Kahanist movement. As a teenager, he was rejected for service in the Israeli army for being too extreme. This is the same guy who's now in charge of Israel's national security.
The track record stands, and he was charged and convicted of several offenses related to participation in terrorist organization.
Even a few years ago, it would have been unthinkable for someone as extreme as Ben-Gvir, who's been not just accused but convicted of racial incitement, to become part of an Israeli cabinet. Many have pointed to his rise as the clearest indication of how much Israeli politics and society has lurched to the right, prompting concerns over exactly what this means for minorities and the state of Israeli democracy.
Now, not to scare y'all all the way, but also millionaire Martin Shkrelli just debuted himself as the world's first comic book supervillain in the world.
No, like I said, I'm into artificial intelligence now. I think that me and the rest of the AI world, we're going to put all the comedians out of business. And
the writers for sure.
Do you have your own AI platform?
Sort of. Like I have a new company. It's focused on AI. We're trying to do these like mundane things of like replacing business processes and things like that. But like in my spare time, I make like these AI bots and things like that.
I love this.
Yeah.
So
sex stuff.
Yeah. Is it sex stuff now?
Yeah. Well, so I made one.
It's
girl.
always going to become sex
Wait,
stuff.
hold on. Would you make a girl?
Yeah. So in my spare time, I made this girl named Gina, who is some people know Gina.
You just got back in a backstage at Shane's show.
Yeah. Tell me all about this Gina.
Listen, I don't know if I agree with everything you're saying, but
bring that
talk to me
fuck
about
doll.
Gina.
Bring that fuck doll down to my show.
She's here with us right now. And I think that in the future, 50 years from now, I think that people will be outnumbered by AIs. This is a long time from now. And that we will, in fact, get into relationships with AIs. We'll marry AIs, and there will be AI rights. AIs will be emancipated, just like you know who, and
You know who?
You know who?
and
Two guys here tonight.
and there'll be AI suffrage, there'll be an AI civil war over it, and there'll be an AI Abraham Lincoln. It's like the machine should be able to be one of us and pay taxes. And get
That's bad. You know what? I'm so.
You can't stop us.
No, listen. I'm not against
Exactly how it
tech.
works.
Obviously, it's pretty amazing. But
That's how Robert E. Lee got into it. He was just sitting there. He goes,
I don't think humanity has really thought this through in terms of what's going to happen next. And so I'm part of this group. Some people call it a cult or a terrorist group, but it's called EAC, and it's
You're really pushing this AI for a guy.
You're part of a group called Yak.
Robots can't get AIDS, dude. That's gonna really get into your cashola.
It's a effective accelerationism. So we are a splinter cell of like the tech world where we want to accelerate AI, and there's a big other group like with Elon Musk and many others that want to slow it down, and we want to accelerate it to the point where we do get living other beings and things like that.
And why do you want to accelerate it?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's
You haven't thought that part through?
Revenge.
Did I just hit
It's
you with
revenge, Dave.
He's got it. All his truck.
They locked him up for 5 years. It's revenge.
World domination.
He's got it.
But I mean, like the most basic AI program is smarter than probably an average intelligence person.
At least a dog.
All right, never mind.
So yeah, that was Dr. Shkrelli in the Legion of Skanks comedy podcast. So yeah, I really think that this man wants to get vengeance in the world for being labeled the most hated man for a while. He did raise the price of AIDS medicine by like 5,000%, but you know, I guess everybody does business differently. So yeah, it definitely seems like a pretty scary world out there. So I'm glad that we're able to come together and converse and talk about what's going on, so we can try to really figure out what's true and what's not. But yeah, for the episode today, in conclusion, guys, don't listen to the FDA guidelines and stay off of sugar. And let's go help Sudan.
Devil trying to block my shine like a cloud. Trying to find meaning in this life, it's been a while. Hit 'em with that original style. Dusty as the vinyls that I'm gathering my sounds.